Welcome in part 2, the Garden Report, here in TD Garden. It's right there. Bradley Beal graced the floor just below us, went into that back court area behind the baseline, and what looked like the icing three-point play through Daniel Tice. If it wasn't that, it was going to be the Russell Westbrook corner three that followed as the Wizards built themselves a 6-point lead with 2 minutes to go here. Jayson Tatum, Semi Ojeleye, the Celtics offense erased all of that with perfect execution down the stretch. We broke that down in the first half of the Garden Report. I'm here to talk about Bradley Beal, who's always going to be a topic of conversation when it comes to trades. Not so much now. This would have marked 8 wins and 9 for the Wizards. He is steadfastly committed to Washington, D.C., loves the city, signed a 3-year extension with the team that's going to kick in next year, or a 2-year rather. It's going to be 2 years beyond this year at a high price range, $35 million first year, pushing toward $40 million in the second year. So big bucks, a big committal to a team, a situation that he believes in. Tommy Shepard, even though they made that John Wall Russell Westbrook deal that has not played out, and let me tell you, for large stretches of this game, it was hard to notice Russell Westbrook out there. His shot is all but gone, if it was ever there. He doesn't hit free throws. He's not as explosive on the ball, as great of a playmaker. He was barely making plays in this one. It was all Bradley Beal. So Bradley Beal captures the imagination. Friend of Jayson Tatum, back to childhood. Jayson Tatum was ranting and raving post-game about the possibility of them playing together in the All-Star game.
I mean, we talk daily. We talk all the time. So it's just good to see him. Extremely excited that we'll both be, starting in the All-Star game next week. And hopefully we can be on the same team. I've never, in organized basketball, played on the same team with him. So, that'll be special for us if we can. I mean, it's going to be our first All-Star game together, but, hopefully we can be on the same team.
Where they're both going to be starters. And Beal leads all of basketball in scoring, 32 points a game, and he added to it with one of his best all year tonight, getting on the ball, off the ball, into the lane. You saw how he dragged Robert Williams out of the post to the perimeter to free up lanes for himself and others, off switches. He just directed the Celtics defense single-handedly in a way that few players can right now. And what I love about him and Tatum in a battle like this is the artistry of those two. They go in between. They score from the mid-range. They have a crafty array of moves, spin moves, fadeaways. They're sensational spot-up shooters. Those two on the same team would be a dream to behold. And battling is the next best thing, one-on-one here. I love the fact that they guard each other, too. They know each other's moves. They've mastered their own moves playing against each other in the offseason. So a lot of people are going to ask, as the Wizards sink below the playoff race and into the basement of the Eastern Conference early this year, would Bradley Beal be available? He fits snugly into the TPE. Obviously, you need a ton, possibly Jaylen Brown, to acquire him if it ever comes to that. As I said on postgame, you should go check that out, Celtics postgame, I don't see the Celtics ever dealing Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal. As great as it would be to reunite Tatum and Beal, maybe they would be more of a dynamic offensive duo together. I think you would need 3 stars with how much assets and depth you'd be depleting in a move like that to win a championship. Now, they'd be a fantastic duo team. They'd be able to get others involved. Bradley Beal's doing it alone right now with Garrison Matthews and Mo Wagner and Robin Lopez. His team right now is completely depleted, and they're back in the playoff race because of his greatness. And, some decent adjustments as well. Thomas Bryant's out for them. They're extremely young as a team. So the Celtics with Tatum and Beal alone would be a force to be reckoned with. But without the 3 stars and with a thin roster, I don't know if they win a championship. So I'd be hesitant to give up Brown in that spot. So you'd have to do some sort of 3-team deal. You'd have to have all your future picks on the table in a situation like that. It was all hypothetical. I don't think Beal's getting moved this year. So in the offseason, it becomes even more complicated because his salary bumps up to $35 million. Now you have to match contracts. Where are you going to send Kemba Walker's salary? Marcus Smart would be inevitably gone at that point, but he's expiring contract at that point, so his value would be diminished a little bit. If you're going to set yourself up for that deal, this is what I've been saying, if it's even a possibility in the future. And I think the only way it's a possibility is if Beal steadfastly wants to go to the Celtics at that point. You're going to need to make additions now to have more compelling pieces when that time ultimately comes from a player standpoint. Now, the Celtics have some young players with some value. You need multiple good young players or great players with high value for, as some of around the league have said, the fact that all 29 teams would be in on a Beal deal inevitably. So the competition would be stiff. You could gain an advantage there. Agents make a big play, and if Beal said, I'm going to Boston and Boston only, I think that's the only chance you have in that situation. But you also need to have the assets. And if you're not going to give up Brown in that situation, which is the only thing that would give you a leg up on other teams, you're going to have to find a way to get a third team involved or get assets in here during this season that could be used later at that point. That's why I apologize for the Miles Turner trade when, we don't know if that was going to happen either. But if it was on the table, I apologize for stubbing my nose at that, because that's hypothetically a guy, an asset, salary, those things that could push toward a future trade, a future deal. And he had multiple years on his contract. So that's the kind of guy you would think about wanting to have in that situation later. But this is all hypothetical. For right now, the Wizards have won 7 of 9 and are firmly back in the playoff race in the Eastern Conference when 10 teams are making the playoffs. So the Celtics, Clippers on Tuesday. Thursday, they welcome the Toronto Raptors here. Ton of home games in the second half of the season. The Celtics are now 10-5 at home. Jayson Tatum outduels Beal for now. Could we see them together next week on the same team and get a possible preview of a future dream for Celtics fans? We'll know in just a few days. All-Star game next week. Follow us along throughout the All-Star break on CLNS Media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Celtics All Access, Celtics CLNS on Twitter, CLNS Media on Instagram. Of course, Real Bob Manning on Twitter, as well as Bobby Manning on YouTube for game streams and other stuff, film breakdowns, all that. And CLNSmedia.com for our post-game articles, reaction, and video.